Look who finally showed up. My mother Vivian's voice boomed through the high-grade speakers of the Grand Pavilion, sharp and toxic as acid. The family disgrace, crawling back out of her hole just in time to beg for a handout. Over 60 high society guests, city politicians, and defense contractors turned simultaneously, their crystal wine glasses freezing halfway to their lips. I stood motionless at the edge of the polished mahogany floor, wearing my dark blue Marine Corps dress uniform. My back was rigid, my thumb quietly tracing the cold, notched edge of an old bronze challenge coin inside my right gloved pocket. A habit developed over 6 years as Captain Olivia Vance, Operations Intelligence Lead for Special Operations Command. In my left pocket rested a slick, dark titanium encryption drive bearing the serial code Sierra 99. Beside my mother on the flower-adorned stage stood my younger sister, Sophia, draped in a $4,000 silk evening gown, her hand wrapped tightly around the arm of my former fiancé, Ethan. Suspended above them was a velvet banner that read, "Celebrating Sophia and Ethan, new Chief Operating Officers of Vance Maritime Logistics." "Mom, please," I said, my voice dead flat, utilizing the exact emotionless cadence I had used when delivering high-stakes threat assessments in international waters. "You sent me an urgent text message at 1800 hours stating that Dad's medical trust required my physical thumbprint to release his legacy pension." "I lied to get you in this room," Vivian roared into the microphone, her diamond bracelets clinking violently as a chorus of cruel, mocking laughter erupted from her throat. "I needed every mayor, judge, and defense supplier in this state to see what an utter, broke failure looks like. You spent 6 years hiding behind a military uniform while your sister built this family's $50 million maritime logistics firm. You didn't give a single dollar from your pathetic military salary to help your dying father." Ethan took a step forward, grabbing the microphone from Vivian and casting a look of calculated, theatrical sorrow directly at the crowd. "It's true, Olivia," Ethan said into the PA system, his tone dripping with patronizing pity. "I tried to stick by you, but your combat paranoia, those endless operational migraines, and your complete financial emptiness made you impossible to love. Sophia is whole. Sophia belongs in executive boardrooms. You belong in a government facility." A wave of hostile murmurs swept through the room. Prominent investors shook their heads in open disgust, taking small sips of champagne while glaring at my crisp uniform. Sophia smirked, adjusting her diamond necklace, an heirloom that used to sit in my late grandmother's jewelry box. "She doesn't even hold an active government clearance anywhere," Vivian shrieked, taking a sharp step toward the edge of the stage. "Security, throw this unstable trespasser out into the rain before she ruins my daughter's celebration." 2 heavy-set private security guards stepped rapidly from the shadows near the double oak doors, their leather boots squeaking against the floor as they closed in on my flanks. But before their fingers could touch my epaulets, a tall, broad-shouldered man sitting at the central VIP table pushed his leather armchair back with a sharp, heavy scrape and stood up. He wore an impeccably tailored Marine Corps service dress uniform bearing the silver stars of a 2-star Major General on his collar. Major General Harrison Vance, Deputy Commander of Marine Corps Logistics Command. The entire pavilion plunged into absolute, suffocating silence. The 2 heavy-set private security guards froze instantly, their hands hovering in midair as they stared at the 2-star general in paralyzed shock. "Mrs. Vance," Major General Vance cut through the silence like an armor-piercing round, quiet, yet carrying the overwhelming weight of highest military authority. "Mrs. Vance, you might want to check your corporate's federal maritime shipping license before you instruct private guards to lay hands on the officer who holds the master clearance keys to every naval dock your cargo ships enter." Vivian's triumphant sneer shattered into an expression of stunned, pale confusion. Ethan's hand began to tremble uncontrollably against the microphone stand, his knuckles turning chalk white. General Vance? Vivian stammered into the microphone, her voice faltering. I believe there has been a profound misunderstanding. This is a private corporate engagement dinner. Olivia is simply a low-level discharged veteran living off government welfare. General Vance didn't even acknowledge her statement. He turned directly toward me, clicked his heels together with a resounding snap, and brought his right hand up to his brow in a rigid, flawless military salute. Captain Vance, General Vance declared loudly enough for every recording device in the room to catch, Operation Ghost Anchor has officially reached execution phase by the Naval Criminal Investigative Service and the Department of Defense. The floor is yours, ma'am. My sister Sophia blinked in rapid panic, looking wildly back and forth between the general and my motionless silhouette. What operation? What is he talking about, Ethan? Ethan didn't answer. A single drop of freezing sweat rolled down his jaw, soaking into his tuxedo collar. I took 3 deliberate, steady steps forward, the soles of my dress shoes clicking like gunshot impacts against the mahogany flooring. I pulled the dark titanium encryption drive marked Sierra 99 from my pocket and held it high under the direct beam of the stage spotlights, the exact cryptographic drive my late father, Captain Thomas Vance, had secretly encoded and hidden inside my deployment sea bag before I shipped out overseas. 6 years ago, I said, my voice projecting across the grand hall without the need for a microphone. My father suffered a traumatic stroke. My mother informed me that Vance Maritime was utterly bankrupt, that Dad's specialized medical care cost $35,000 a month, and that if I didn't sign over my military power of attorney to Ethan, Dad would be removed from his life support care. Don't listen to her, Vivian screamed, rushing down the small wooden steps of the stage. She is mentally unhinged. She suffers from severe blast-induced memory distortions. She forged those trust certificates. I signed that military power of attorney, I continued, ignoring my mother completely, as 70 high-profile guests watched in spellbound silence. And for 72 consecutive months, $12,000 a month was automatically deducted from my combat hazard pay, my flight operational bonuses, and my officer disability trust. I lived in a freezing one-room apartment near the base, wearing threadbare civilian clothes, eating basic military rations, believing every single penny was keeping my father alive in a specialized private facility. It was, Vivian yelled, her hands waving wildly in the air as her face turned an unhealthy shade of crimson. Then why, General Vance spoke up, opening a heavy blue leather federal ledger on his table, does the United States Department of Veterans Affairs forensic log confirm that Captain Thomas Vance was transferred to a fully federally funded veterans hospice in San Diego 6 years ago, paid for entirely by government medical benefits? The silence in the room was so heavy that the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the foyer sounded like a sledgehammer hitting wood. Vivian froze mid-step. Her mouth opened wide, but no sound came out. You lied to me for 6 long years, Mom. You told me Dad was in strict isolation, that visitors were prohibited by medical protocol. You sent me manufactured monthly progress letters stamped with a fake doctor's seal, just so you, Sophia, and Ethan could siphon $864,000 of my combat pay to fund your penthouse suites, your sports cars, and designer gowns. Olivia, Ethan stammered, backing away from Sophia on the stage, his hands raised in a desperate, pleading gesture. Olivia, listen to me. It wasn't my idea. Your mother told me you were deployed in high-risk zones and would never cross-reference local VA records. She told me we needed the capital to keep Vance Maritime afloat. You spineless worm, Sophia shrieked, turning around and slamming her rhinestone-covered handbag across Ethan's face. You were the one who asked my mother for access to the offshore accounts. You used my sister's stolen combat pay to clear your personal gambling debts in Macau. I took it because your mother promised me the president position, Ethan screamed back, shoving Sophia away as the room of high society elites watched three of them tear each other apart like vicious scavengers. Without breaking eye contact, I walked over to the main audiovisual control console near the corner of the stage. I inserted the dark titanium encryption drive marked Sierra 99 into the terminal slot and entered my 10-digit security PIN. The massive velvet banner behind the stage automatically unhooked and hit the floor with a soft rustle, exposing a high-definition video wall that flickered to life. Instead of corporate graphics for Vance Maritime Logistics, the screen displayed a live federal forensic audit from the Department of Defense Inspector General, complete with digital transaction paths, red government seals, and encrypted email threads. Source account: Captain O. Vance, Combat Hazard Disability Trust. Destination account: Sophia Vance Offshore Holdings, Cayman Islands. Total stolen funds: $864,000. Classified Naval Logistics Clearance, SI-99, registered exclusively to Captain Olivia Vance. You told every investor in this city that Vance Maritime was saved by Sophia's executive vision, I said, addressing the stunned audience of defense contractors and city leaders. Sophia didn't secure the naval supply contracts that saved this firm last year. I cleared those logistics corridors through my active military security clearance while recovering in a military hospital wing. Ethan stole my digital signature using the forged medical power of attorney my mother tricked me into signing while I was under heavy post-surgery medication. "No! That contract belongs to the Vance estate!" Vivian shrieked, charging toward the console with her fingernails extended. "A military power of attorney executed under fraudulent medical pretenses constitutes a federal felony, Mrs. Vance," General Vance stated with ice-cold finality. At that exact second, the heavy double oak doors at the entrance burst open with a booming thud. 8 uniformed federal marshals, accompanied by special agents from the Naval Criminal Investigation Service and the Defense Criminal Investigation Service, marched into the hall, their tactical boots striking the floor in loud, unified unison. The lead NCIS agent walked straight up the steps of the stage, coming to a halt directly between my mother, my sister, and my ex-fiancé. "Vivian Vance, Sophia Vance, Ethan Cross," the lead agent declared, his voice reverberating off the high ceilings. "You are under arrest for federal wire fraud, multi-year military pension theft, defense contract forgery, and treasonous misuse of classified military supply credentials." "Get your hands off me!" Vivian screamed, as 2 federal marshals forced her arms behind her back. The sharp, cold click-click of steel handcuffs echoed through the silent hall. "Do you know who I am? I am Vivian Vance. I sit on the board of 3 city charities." "Your charity appointments," the agent replied coldly, "were revoked 2 hours ago following Captain Vance's submission of sworn federal affidavits and decrypted banking ledgers." Ethan offered zero resistance. He collapsed onto his knees on the stage floor, sobbing hysterically as steel cuffs locked over his wrists behind his expensive tuxedo jacket. Sophia screamed and kicked, her designer gown ripping along the seam as she was dragged down the stage steps, her social status utterly obliterated in front of every news outlet and business partner in the state. "Olivia, stop this right now!" Vivian sobbed, her face twisted in ugly, desperate terror as she was hauled past me toward the exit. "We are your blood family. You can't let these federal agents lock your own mother in prison." I stood straight, my shoulders back, my chin high, looking at my mother with absolute, unshakable calm. "You told this room to look who finally showed up, Mom," I said softly, my voice carrying into every quiet corner of the pavilion. "I showed up to make sure the war you started at home ends tonight." As the federal marshals marched my mother, sister, and ex-fiancé down the central aisle, past a crowd of horrified investors who were already canceling their contracts, Major General Vance stepped up beside me. He didn't offer empty words or superficial sympathy. He simply stood at attention, rendering another crisp, silent salute of absolute respect. Slowly, every defense contractor, military officer, and city official in the room stood up from their tables, breaking into a thunderous, rising standing ovation that echoed off the high rafters, honoring the true officer who had stood her ground against complete corruption. I pulled the bronze challenge coin from my glove pocket, feeling the solid weight of truth in my palm, knowing that 6 years of psychological torture had finally collapsed into the unshakable peace of earned justice. You cannot fix toxic family relationships by sacrificing your honor, your body, or your truth. For 6 long years, I allowed my family to manipulate my sense of duty, believing that my quiet endurance was the ultimate proof of my devotion to my father's memory. I allowed them to attack my sanity, mock my military service, and steal my hard-earned pay because I foolishly believed that keeping silent was the only way to hold my family together. But greedy, manipulative people do not view your patience as love. They view it as permission to destroy you further. They will use your deepest loyalty against you, manipulate your reality, and attempt to publicly erase you, all while playing the victim when their lies are finally exposed to the world. Real peace does not come from silently enduring abuse to protect people who harm you. Real peace comes from standing firm in your integrity, walking directly into the light of truth, and allowing the unyielding law of cause and effect to deliver the exact consequences they earned. Never set yourself on fire to keep toxic people warm.